Here we go with another episode of me attempting to fix the UK's cheapest Harley-Davidson. Now, if you're new to this channel, then you need to know that I bought this Harley-Davidson Sportster for just £1,000, which is what makes it the UK's cheapest Harley-Davidson. And if you're familiar with this channel and this series, then you're probably fed up of hearing me introduce my videos like that. But either way, it's time to do some more work on this bike, so let's crack on. And I think this week we're going to start right back at the front end with a bit more cleaning, because last week I left you with one rather clean looking fork and one rather corroded looking fork. So let's jump straight back in and tackle that. Do this very simply, but a degreaser, spray it down with a bit of hot water, and then spend a lot of time rubbing it down with some red Scotch-Brite. This time with the Scotch-Brite, I'm taking some advice from some of you in your helpful comments on last week's video. I'm generally rubbing the forks up and down rather than in circular motions, trying to get nice uniform scratches all going in one direction. I'm not sure if I quite managed it correctly because it didn't seem to look too much different to the other fork, but I gave it my best shot. Okay, that is looking way better. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get it while it's on the bike. Maybe at some point, if I end up taking this front wheel off, then I'll clean them up a bit better when I got more access. But that is way better than what it was before on both sides. I even used a little bit of alley foil just to clean up around the top of these. Still a little bit pitted, but again, better. So while I'm at the front end, I think I'm going to do this part here on the forks. So that's pretty corroded. Let's get that nice and shiny as well. Slightly different approach with this one. I'm going to go with the speedy option and just use a drill brush. So working the drill brush all over it just seemed to take away that top layer of corrosion without leaving too many scratches. Okay, I got a bit carried away there and I skipped forward a few steps, but that is all generally looking a lot more shiny now. We obviously now have a not so corroded bit of that. I've done up here on the fork clamps. I've done around the headlight, so that's not looking so rusty anymore. And all the headstock up here. That's all looking nice and shiny. I gotta be honest, that wire wheel on the drill brush worked way better than I thought. I thought that was genuinely gonna scratch it up really bad and cause me a bit of a situation. Don't really know why I did it, but it worked out pretty well. I'm going to keep rolling with the cleaning. I think I'm going to work my way down this way so I can clean up a bit of that frame and maybe start painting some of that. Now I know this would be a hell of a lot easier if I could just jet wash the bike, but obviously with no exhaust on it, and I don't really have a way of covering up those exhaust ports really good to make sure no water goes in there. So jet washing is not really an option right now. Plus I'm not really set up for it and it's really cold and it has been raining all week. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's raining now. So let's not do that. So let's take the keys out, spray some degreaser, then work the degreaser all over with some detailing brushes. Then spritz it down with some hot water. Then rub it off with a towel or microfiber. Now, although you're not seeing the whole process, I did repeat this cleaning process step by step all the way down the front of the frame until the front of the frame was nice and clean. Now, doesn't that just look much cleaner already? Not the most orthodox way to clean a bike, but I guess I am just working with what I've got and what I can do. To be fair, the main aim of that was just to wash off any dirt that's possibly going to be in the areas that are going to need painting. So once that dries off, I can start sort of rubbing back and chipping off any loose paint like up here, and then I can put some Hammerite over it. Speaking of Hammerite, the Hammerite I put on the back last week has dried, and that actually all looks pretty damn good now, considering it did have rust spots all over it. So I'm pretty confident that the Hammerite is going to be good. Also, while we're on the subject, the Hammerite, those actually turned out pretty damn good as well. The ends are pretty nice and shiny, and generally the rest of them are quite good. It might need another coat, just a little bit of touching up, but actually turned out more impressive than I thought. So while we're on the subject of foot pegs and controls, I'm over here wire wheeling the foot pegs. Okay, so all in all there, the foot brake came out quite nicely. I don't think I got any of that on film. And then this bar is it's cleaner, but I think that's going to need painting because it's just going to ruin the look of it otherwise. So while we're on the subject of foot pegs and controls, let's do this one. So once again, no specific technique to how I use the wire wheel on the drill. I'm just gently working it all over the foot peg, trying not to stay in one spot for too long to cause too many scratches, but generally just working it all around, trying to take off that top layer of corrosion and get it looking nice and shiny again. So with the lever bracket done, it's onto the gear linkage, and then I'm just trying to take off any corrosion on this. I don't think this one's going to look shiny again. It probably will need paint afterwards, but we just got to get as much corrosion off as possible to make it paintable. Okay, that one also cleaned up pretty well. It's looking fairly shiny and not so corroded anymore. The rod for the gear linkage didn't clean up too well, so I'm probably going to end up painting that to match the other one. I'm thinking keep the controls aluminium and shiny and then paint the linkages black, maybe. So it looks like my cleaning has bitten me in the ass because this is still soaking down here. I was hoping it might dry out and then I can clean up that rust and then put a bit of paint on it, but it is still absolutely soaking. Now I need all that to dry so I can see where the flaky bits of paint are, and I can get the flaky bits off and then I can paint all around them. Okay, it's actually now been a couple of days. As you can see, it is all now dry. So let's get a bit of wire brush on there, maybe an abrasive wheel, and then we can start doing some cure rust. As you can see, the rust is now a lot more cleaned up and a lot less peely on the paint. So now I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to try this Hammerite Cure Rust because I'm using Hammerite paint on the frame anyway, so it just makes sense to use the Hammerite rust converter as well. Now again, never use this Hammerite Cure Rust, same as the plastic coat in the last video, but we're just going to pour some into a tub, don't know how much I need, and then we're just going to paint it onto the frame with a brush. So my technique for this, rightly or wrongly, was to just put as much as I can on the brush and just slap it onto the rust, really working it in, going over everything 2 or 3 times, and just making sure it was spread nice and evenly. Okay, so now that is all on. It's working its magic everywhere, converting that rust to turn it in, or convert and protect the rust, and then turn it into a surface that I can paint over, and hopefully the rust shouldn't come back through. But we need to leave that to dry. Now, whether I've got all that on well, we shall find out later on, I guess, once that's dry and set. It's always hard to know when you do these things for the first time whether you're doing it right, because you don't really know until the job is done. So, next up is a bit more paint. And this time it's going to be more Hammerite, and this time I've got this Hammerite spray paint. I thought I'd grab the smooth one. I messed up. I picked up the hammered black, so not quite sure how this will turn out, but we're going to paint the foot pegs. Obviously, I cleaned that up a little while back, so that should now just be able to be painted straight over. Maybe I should put rust protector on it first, but we're just going to go with Hammerite. So while some of the other things dry, I'm going to take off this bottom belt guard. If I turn the wrench the right way. I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to see how much of that swing arm we can clean up with it on the bike so that I've got less to do if or when I do actually take it off. All the nuts and bolts on this one are 3/8. Last one's a bit tricky to get to, so we're going to have to go with a spanner, which is a bit annoying. Now, with that out of the way, I can get to all the bottom of this bit. I mean, look at that. It is just flaking off. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time cleaning that up so that there's less to do later on. Okay, kind of making this up as I go along now while I'm waiting for other bits to dry, but the swing arm is pretty much cleaned up. I've got literally all of the flaky paint off. Can't really find any left now. And that actually looks a lot better. I know I went over it with the rubber abrasive wheel. Not sure whether that was the best thing, but you don't know until you try these things. But it does look better. And from this side, you can see, again, that bit of paint is all, you know, hard and actually not flaking, but the rest of it, pretty much taking it all off, even down this gap here, it's pretty much all gone. Now at this point, some of you are probably watching this screaming, take the wheel and the swing arm off, but there is a very good reason why I'm not doing that right now. I was going to do it, and I probably will still do it at some point, but right now, because of the mishap or not being able to get the engine's exhaust stud out of the engine last week, this bike has to go to someone in order to get that removed. I spoke to a couple of specialists, and they said the cylinder head is going to have to come off in order to drill that exhaust stud out. Those who don't remember, it is that one there that has snapped flush in the cylinder head. So because the cylinder head comes off, it means I need to replace the gaskets. So I'm waiting on gaskets, and then hopefully the bike is going to someone within the next week in order to have that done. And in order to have that done, I'm going to need to be able to transport the bike, which I'm not going to be able to do if I take the rear wheel and swing arm off. And I know for some of you watching this, getting that all off, painted, put back on, is probably a couple of days job. But with how inconsistently I actually managed to get here in the unit, to obviously do these jobs, it's not a couple of days work for me. And the last thing I want is to have that booked in with someone and obviously either have to let them down because I haven't got time to reassemble the bike, or to just have to cancel with them because the bike is in pieces. So I want to get that job done first. Instead, rightly or wrongly, I'm going to start treating all this rust. Once again, I'm just slapping the rust treatment on as thickly as possible and making sure I'm going over every single part and working it in as best as I can to all of the rust and all of the little crevices. And of course, same again for the other side of the swing arm. Now, I know this isn't the best way to do it. The best way to do it would be to take the swing arm off, get all the rust and make sure this job is done permanently, but I'm just trying to do the best that I can for the time being. Okay, back to the front of the bike. The Corrust stuff, Cure Rust, whatever it's called, is now dry everywhere. So let's stick some Hammerite over that. So on with the Hammerite, I am slopping this on nice and thick, but I'm also trying to make sure that I don't slop it and drop it everywhere because I don't want paint all over the other parts. I only want it on the rusty bits of the frame that I have treated. As the Hammerite dries, it goes quite tacky, so then I'm just going over it with the brush, trying to make all the strokes nice and even in the same direction, because I'm pretty sure that's what I did on the back of the bike. Okay, it's gone on no real technique as per usual. Just hoping for the best on that one. It is one of those jobs that you just don't know how it's going to turn out until it's done. I'm hoping it dries on nice and smooth like the back end. Obviously I did this last week. And that looks, I think that looks really good. Even when you get up quite close, there's not really anything to say that obviously I brushed on Hammerite. There's a few maybe blobs, but I'm just hoping that the front that I've done now will dry somewhat like that. Right now, not super confident, but who knows? Oh, seeing as I'm going to have to redo that anyway, let's spray a bit of Stone Guard Black on top of it and see if that makes any difference. That was a bit stupid. I'm just messing around now. That is probably going to react really badly to mixing those paints, I would imagine, but don't know, you don't try. Although immediately, it actually looks better. I guess another thing, we'll just see how that one turns out. So I guess once again, bit slow progress this week, bit all over the place, but progress is progress, and that's good. At least now we've got a much cleaner and tidier looking front end. Still got the handlebars and the controls to kind of spruce up a bit, but all in all, from this angle, she looks good. I really need to tidy up my bench. I have also managed to source myself a sprocket cover this week. That's obviously going to need a complete refurb, well as the other covers on the engine and basically the whole engine in general. The sprocket cover will go there. I'll obviously need to get the bolts for it. I have ordered them from a Zodiac dealer probably over a week ago and heard nothing since. So if anybody has any experience in how long you actually wait for that stuff, please let me know. Now, obviously, this cylinder head has got to come off the engine in order to have that bolt drilled out, or stud drilled out. So that needs to be done before I can even really think about cleaning up the rest of the engine. Now, when it comes to cleaning it up, it's going to need some paint. Obviously, probably going to use wrinkle paint, obviously VHT. Do I stick with the grey? Do I go silver? Do I do black? Let me know what you think. Now, I know what colour I'm going to have the tank painted. I'm not going to tell you all yet. I'm going to leave that for a surprise when it does actually go off to get done. But yeah, I'm really unsure on what colour to do the engine. Do I, stick as it is and just refresh the paint on it in that colour, or maybe just all black? Don't know. And if anyone's wondering what the result of the rear mudguard was, then this didn't go too well either. It might look all right from a distance, but I really think I messed up on the clear coat. So I'm going to need to wet sand it and probably do another base coat and then clear coat it, and hopefully it turns out all right then. Every day literally is a school day with this bike. So that is probably all I got time for. I'm sorry if it is a bit of a short one this week, but again, I'm not a professional. I do not do this full time. This is a part-time hobby. So I just got to squeeze in what I can when I can. But either way, if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel for the future of this bike and for the other projects that will get some love eventually. And make sure to let me know in the comments what colour you think the engine should be. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.